We have legislation in Ireland that is outdated and legislation that is based very much on a hierarchy of what units in society get recognised, be they married or not. And then we have some legislation like the Child and Family Relationship Bill and others that have sought to bring in the equal status legislation that have tried to promote equality. And there is nothing to stop the promotion of equality through legislation, even if it is not there in the... in fact, the legislation has done a lot of the heavy lifting to repair what is an inequality of recognition at that constitutional level. And in fact, so that we can have a referendum that simply deals in a clean way with the recognition of all families, including, of course, lone parent families, which make up almost a quarter of families in the state, as well as the 150,000 persons in cohabiting couples that we've heard of. That's the referendum, but we don't need to wait for that to fix the legislation. In fact, it's much better if, as we did with the marriage equality referendum and others, we fix that which we can fix early on. And let's look to the ruling of the judge again. The crucial point which was made, the fundamental point that this is a loving family in the sense in which a family is generally understood in our society, and there are many, many more loving families like this across the state. But the problem was that it was the marriage contract that the legislation as it was currently drafted, that dated legislation that this bill is trying to rightly update, this is according to the judge, his judgment was that it was the marriage contract that the legislation was seeking to support and promote, so not families. Why not have legislation that supports and promotes families? And yes, there are many, many areas that we need to address, which is why when we have one we can start addressing, we need to start doing that. But let's be clear in terms of social protection. Social Protection Department, which is your department, Minister, that department, its legislation, we need to look to what is its primary goal. And is the primary goal of our widowers' pension system and our social protection payments for families who have suffered a horrible loss, is our main goal of that going to be protection of those families, or is it going to be promoting the institution of marriage? And it's within our power to ensure that at least the social protection legislation, whatever about other parts of, inheritance legislation, all of those other areas that have been flagged that we will need to address in time, but that our social protection legislation prioritises social protection and protection of all those parts of society and units of society which are families, whatever their form may take. That is within our power to do. And even if, Minister, there was a concern in relation to the marital family and the cohabitant when there may be multiple families, those are issues that could be addressed in amendment. There's nothing to stop those being addressed in amendment at committee stage and through a constructive debate of that. And again, bills move very slowly in this House. It would be at least a few months before we would see this coming back. And again, let's have a piece of legislation that is moving. And Minister, if you really feel that you cannot support it moving forward, or that you need a delay today, I think then the onus comes on the department to address this through the social welfare bill. Because we hear a lot about the inadvertent consequences, but sometimes when we talk about the unintended consequences and avoiding but we need to look to what are our intentions. When we know that there is known harm, not an unintended consequence, but a consequence which is now a known consequence of how the legislation is currently drafted. A known consequence being that real families, the kind of families all of those across this House have spoken about, real families, we know that they are experiencing grief and that they are not getting the social protection and support that they need. When we know that, we cannot not act. And in that context, Minister, it is crucial that there would be a sign of action, and I believe it should be taken in this bill, but I think it also needs to be reflected in the social welfare legislation.